I have played World of Warcraft for 9 years. I've leveled up every class to 100 and then some, and I've done pretty much everything there is to do in the game. And my biggest regret is that I've never actually read the quest text. Sure, I've seen all the cinematics, I've even read a few books. I know most of the story, but I've missed out on the most important story of them all. My own journey. The hero's journey in World of Warcraft. So I've taken it upon myself to play through every single zone and do every single quest and read every bit of quest text and then some. And then I'm going to do my best to share everything I've learned with you, just in case you might have missed out on the story too. So be warned, this video is going to contain massive spoilers. Now, let today's journey begin. You've been sent from Deathnell to deliver a letter to Deathguard Simmer, containing the whereabouts of the remaining members of the Scarlet Crusade. You find him in the Calston estate. He starts talking to you about humans, how they're so fickle, and how they can't be trusted. Like the farmers nearby, for instance. They might be peaceful now, but that could change. He wants all of them destroyed, and it's your job to do it. And steal their pumpkins too, for good measure. But when you arrive at the farm, it becomes clear that these farmers are no real threat at all. They seem to be keeping to themselves, and they're not even armed or dressed for battle. And as you begin to rampage through their fields, it becomes even more clear they just want to be left alone. It's as good a time as any to remind you that every fallen victim that the Forsaken finds can become a potential new recruit when they're raised up in undeath. You are then sent to a nearby Scarlet Crusade camp to deal with the threat there. During the slaughter, you find a scarlet letter off of one of the bodies. The letter was written to a Lieutenant Gebler, ridiculing him for imprisoning an undead when it is the way of the Scarlet Crusade to take no prisoners, especially when dealing with the undead. Gebler is commanded to execute this prisoner, who just so happens to be in this very camp. At the top of the tower, you find the prisoner, and it's Lillian Voss. She was the undead spoken of in the letter, which means she was once a member of the Scarlet Crusade. But before you can do anything, Gebler arrives to execute Lillian Voss. It turns out it was Lillian's own father, High Priest Voss, who sent the letter ordering her to be executed. Gebler tells her that she was a threat in life, and even more so in undeath. Betrayed by her former comrades, and disowned by her father, Lillian erupts in a dark aura, exiting the cage and killing Gebler instantaneously. Even though she's been rejected by the living world, she still refuses to identify herself as an undead, and demands that you leave her alone. Along your journey, you've been collecting ingredients for a new plague, and it turns out Apothecary Johann has a purpose for these pumpkins you stole. He plans to lace the pumpkins with plague, turning a harmless-looking pumpkin into a death dish, which he sends you to serve to a captured zealot. When he eats the pumpkin, his flesh immediately begins to rot away, until he dies. You leave the estate and head for Brill. The Scarlet Crusade are not the only threat in the Glades. With the Scourge remnants coming in from the north and east, and the Gilneans attacking from the south, the Forsaken have their hands full. Some of the more sneaky Worgen have managed to make it all the way past Silverpine, and have somehow made their way to Brill. It must have taken a lot of effort into figuring out how to get all the way up here. Unfortunately for them, they should have put more effort into figuring out what was going to happen when they got here. With the Worgen out of the way, you meet a junior apothecary named Holland, who has concocted another batch of plague juice, or as he calls it, a taste of what the Dark Lady has planned for the rest of Azeroth. He sends you to test it out on the captured mountaineer. No mercy. Up north, you meet yet another apothecary named Gerard, along with his assistant, Crispin, a leper gnome. There are massive graves nearby that contain the bodies of many of the citizens of what was once Lordaeron, but a group of undead gnolls have showed up to steal these bodies in order to raise them up for the Scourge. Of course, we can't let that happen, because we have plans of our own with these bodies. So we'll have to deal with the Gnoll threat, but we also need to deal with the Murloc threat as well. Fortunately, the adults can be hunted for ingredients, but we're going to spare the children, because they'll grow up in fear, and teach future generations what happens when you mess with the Forsaken. We eventually find ourselves at Agamand Mills, the largest Scourge stronghold in the Glades. The mills once belonged to the Agamand family, the most prosperous family in Tirisfal before the plague hit. In their pride, the Agamand family, along with all their workers, fortified against the Scourge, but they were all doomed to undeath. Now, the mill is overrun by the Scourge. The ancestors who once resided in the family crypt have all been raised. You bring down the entire Scourge operation and destroy the remains of the Agamand family, except for those that belong to the youngest brother, Delvin. Delvin had betrayed his whole family and foolishly made a pact with the Scourge, allowing them access to the mills. No one really knows what deal was made, but Delvin was the first to be claimed by the Scourge and reanimated in their service. He's a fool, but he's been part of the Scourge for the longest, so you return his remains to Brill in hopes that you can reanimate him. Since the Lich King is now dead, perhaps he will no longer be under the control of the Scourge, and he'll be able to provide valuable information. Unfortunately, Delvin still swears his allegiance to the Scourge and attacks you. It's not likely that he's under the control of the Lich King, since the Lich King is dead. More likely, Delvin is just an idiot. With the most prominent Scourge outpost out of the way, you return your focus to the Scarlet Crusade. You are sent to deal with them at a nearby watchtower. Off of one of the Fallen, you find yet another letter from High Priest Voss. He's put out a bounty on his own daughter for 1,000 gold, warning the Crusaders to kill on sight if they find her. The next Scarlet encampment you encounter seems to have already been attacked. A familiar dark aura covers the fallen corpses, but there are plenty of leftovers for you. You receive word that Lillian Voss has already been sent to the final encampment, and you're asked to assist her. When you arrive, you see nothing but corpses covered in the same dark aura. Only Lieutenant Sanders still lives, and you find him hanging upside down from a tree. As you approach him, you hear a voice behind you. "I could kill you right now if I wanted to. Better watch your step." Lillian Voss identifies herself and tells you that in life, she was a member of the Scarlet Crusade. She gave up her childhood to be raised as a weapon against the undead. She studied stealth, sorcery, and martial arts, and anything else to make herself more powerful. She's ready to confront her father and asks you to come along with her. The two of you head up along a path towards a nearby tower, killing every member of the Scarlet Crusade along the way. High Priest Voss is left speechless when he sees his daughter. And after a few words, Lillian grabs a hold of him, choking the life out of him until he dies. And then she runs off. With the death of High Priest Voss, the last major threat has been dealt with, and your work in the Tirisfal Glades has come to an end. But there's still plenty to be done in Silverpine Forest to the south, where the war against the Gilneans rages on. So if you enjoyed this video, let me know by hitting that like button. And if you found it informative, perhaps you'd like to inform your friends by sharing it with them. And don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to see future videos on this channel. Thanks for watching, have a wonderful day. This is TheKephas. Until next time.